Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to the weekly yoga Facebook show with Irena, or the weekly Facebook yoga show with me. Glad that you made it here. And happy super blue blood moon. Holy cannoli, that's a tongue twister. So a very special day, and I wanted to take the time to do half moon pose on a full moon kind of day, once in a blue moon, right? Now, as we get ready to jump into this, there were 2 tips in particular for half moon that I want to help you with to make it a little bit easier to feel like you're flying to the moon rather than crash landing. Because with half moon pose, if you're not familiar with what it looks like, I'll show you in a minute, but you're basically balancing on one leg, one hand on the floor, other leg and arm in the air. You want to have a couple things in place. Like in my morning class today and in the yoga club yesterday, we spent a lot of time building a strong foundation and a big opening so that by the time we got to half moon, we felt really successful and good, right? It's the difference between taking the time and setting up a plan and versus just kind of going for it, right? Sometimes going for it, we get that beginner's luck, or we have that moment where everything falls into place and it's fabulous. And I'm definitely one who likes to go that route. And then there are other times where taking the time to kind of set things up, let's say you're making a big meal. I'm doing a lot of meal prep with the amazing Sam Rogers. If you have all your ingredients out at once and you have a plan for what you need to chop and bake and get ready for the week, things will go a lot faster and much more smoothly. You're kind of set up for success. Now, what I'm doing today is I'm showing you just the pose. So don't get frustrated if you're trying to get into it and your muscles feel a little tight. Doing a few sun salutes, doing some triangle poses, pyramid poses, anything to open up the back of your legs, thigh stretches, all of those things are going to make it much easier to get into this pose, because open hamstrings, hip flexors, and a real steady engagement of the muscles is important to have in order to feel successful in the pose. So with that being said, I'm going to have you, if you have at home, grab a chair. Hopefully you have one of those. If not, we can compromise and get creative. If you have a yoga block or a Harry Potter book or a full tissue box, maybe even a water bottle. I'll show you with the water bottle. These are the 2 extra props I'm going to have you pick up in order to play half moon with me. All right, so I'm going to just set the chair towards the edge of my space and my water bottle back here. Now with half moon, we typically get into it from triangle pose. So you want to have a nice wide stance and the arms come out like a little T. You're going to turn, we'll go to the left first, honor the feminine, turn the right leg in, left leg open. Now this back foot, it's a little trick, and we'll just kind of sidetrack for a moment. When you have your back foot more parallel to the back edge of your sticky mat, you'll feel more stable and steady, less likely to tip over. But your hamstring will be not quite as open as if you were to turn that back foot in just an inch or so. What that does is unlock your hamstring a little bit more. So if hamstrings are a bit tight, it's a nice way to go. So with back foot turned in an inch and the front toes pointing directly to the top of your mat, make sure that the chair is just maybe about 3 inches, 4 inches in front of your foot. We'll adjust in a moment. You're going to keep your legs strong and steady. Shift to the left and bring your left hand to your shin, right arm to the sky. So one version of triangle pose. Now the more open the back of the leg is, maybe you'll be able to slide that left hand down, gently squeezing the base of the shin and the ankle. And if you're still feeling well here, the breath is steady, you can experiment and slide the left hand even to the floor. So we're getting that big hamstring stretch, back of the thigh, that makes half moon much easier. Now, first tip to get into half moon. You're going to bring the right hand to the hip. You're going to look at the floor and slide your left hip over your ankle. You want to have that left hip over the ankle because it's going to make it much easier. Then If you're using the chair, you're going to bring your forearm to the chair, and you see it's about a torso's distance from my foot. Press through that left foot, the arm, and you just simply lift the leg. From here, you can do all sorts of little adjustments, like drawing the belly in and spinning chest to sky, and maybe even extending that top arm up towards the ceiling. Now to get out of the pose, you're going to extend the arm alongside your ear and reach that right foot back as far as can be. So this top arm works like a little counterbalance. Maybe come into triangle and then all the way up. Fantastic. So that's tip number 1. Get your supporting hip over your ankle. Tip number 2, I'll show you with the block, or if you have a water bottle, this is what you do. So you get creative, right? The arms extend. Now the benefit of the water bottle or the block is if your hamstrings are tight and your fingers don't want to come down to the floor, you have your arm extender. It's less of a stretch on the hamstring. So for triangle on this pose, back foot's turned in an inch, front foot facing the top of the mat, and you're lined up heel to arch. Basic setup. The other thing too is to make sure you have a wide enough stance. Wrist line up with ankles. It's a good guideline to start with. Then as you're here, press the 4 corners of the feet into the floor. Hug the thighs towards each other. And then reach that right arm out over the right leg and bring your right hand to your block or your water bottle. And just pause in triangle. So you take that breath. Now from triangle pose, you're going to bring the top hand to your hip. Look at the floor. So you're looking at something steady that's not moving. Tip number 1, slide that back leg in so the front hip is over the ankle. Tip number 2, you want your hand to be forward, a good foot to 1.5 feet in front of yours and wide. Think of it like a way to create a stable base. And then all you have to do is push right foot in hand in towards the floor and stretch that right leg straight. Beautiful. When you're up there, you draw the belly in and you stretch the left arm high to the sky and you feel like you're flying. It's such an exhilarating experience when you find that moment where you're in flow, you're in harmony. Now to come out of the pose, I'll show you a different way on this side. Bend the supporting knee, hand and foot come down to a forward bend. It's kind of a little friendly way out. Then hands to the hips, shoulder blades on back, and we come all the way up. So those are the 2 tips using the chair and the block that make half moon friendlier, but most important is getting your hip over your ankle and that front hand forward and wide. And when you have that front hand forward and wide, you're going to discover it's so much easier to stay strong through your base. So if you get a chance to try for a half moon today, remember, warm up with a sun salute or 2. I'll put a little link to a video where I've got a nice warm-up routine. And then try the pose once those hamstrings and thighs are open, okay? And when you get a chance, join my Yoga with Irena Club group. The Yoga with Irena Facebook group, I'll give a link at the top there, is a wonderful place where we dive deeper into the yoga. It's a free Facebook community group, and I'm still accepting new members, but it's a community where we really come together, get to know each other like you would at a yoga studio, and discover the depths that yoga brings, you know, because it's more than just a half moon on the sticky mat. It's being able to say, wow, when life is chaotic and when I just can't find my balance, everything seems to fall to pieces. So with a half moon pose, we learn if we're very distracted, if we're thinking about a million different things, balance is going to be tough. So we learn how to become more centered, more in the moment. And that's when you find yourself going with the flow. So thank you for joining me today. Check out the Yoga with Irena Facebook group where we dive deeper into these yoga adventures. I'd love to have you be a part of it. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye, guys. Lots of love.